Comments and opinions expressed on Writers in Focus are those of the individual participants and are presented for the purpose of discussion only. No endorsements by Atlanta Fulton Public Library System or Fulton County government are intended, and none should be presumed. Hi, welcome to Writers in Focus. I'm your host, James Taylor, and today I'm delighted to have as my guest Mr. Terrell Tannen. Terrell, may I call you Terrell?
Yes, please.
I'd like to welcome you to the Atlanta Fulton Public Library and the Fulton County Government Center. We're here to talk about your book, When Blood Is Gone, a memoir of time, place, and family. By way of introduction, you are an LA-based screenwriter, producer, and director for films and television. You directed, I think your first directorial debut was Minor Miracle, starring the greatest soccer player who ever played, Pele, and that unknown Hollywood guy named John Huston.
Right.
He starred in your movie.
Yes.
You've written dozens of contracted screenplays, and you've co-written and co-produced Gospel Hill with Angela Bassett, Danny Glover, and Samuel Jackson, among other distinguished cast members. I'm going to say this, okay? Your book, When Blood Is Gone, is one of the most unusual and moving books I've read in a very long time. It's hard for me to say this. We're going to do 28 minutes of talk, but it's incredibly personal. It's a testament in the sense that you are bearing witness to several of extraordinary life events that you've experienced that give you, to use a fancy German word, a Weltanschauung, a way of looking at the world that you wanted to share. This book talks about the death of your mother, your father, your brother. It talks about your friendships with some of the great people in Hollywood. And it begins with you wearing a blue suit in a boat headed towards John Huston's hacienda on the Mexican coast. Why? Yes. What does John Huston have to do with the death of your family?
Well,
how's that for a question?
That wasn't what I was expecting. I have to say that, but it. I opened the book with the story of how I met John Huston, and the reason I did is because that was a turning point in my life. I met him under very humbled circumstances because I had traveled on the open sea on a 20-foot outboard panga.
It's a fabulous story, Terrell.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, it was. It's a story that everyone loved to hear in Hollywood once I got there, and because John was kind of known for putting people through their paces anyway. He had a bit of a wicked sense of humor, and I saw that, and I kind of liked it actually, but. When I met him, I hardly knew what to expect, but the fact that he embraced my ideas and embraced my character as much as anything else, and agreed to perform in this film that I was making for hardly anything for a salary, it moved me. And the day that he accepted my offer, I was at his home in Mexico, and he walked off, leaving me sitting on a step on the beach. And it just became one of those moments where, as I described it in the book, that I felt life realized. And I realized that there wasn't anything special I'd done to deserve this. It was just who I was that gave me that opportunity, and I had my family to thank for that.
Very briefly, I'm going to tell this story to the audience because you're a young man. You've left the East Coast. You're a documentarian filmmaker on the East Coast. You go to the West Coast. You're married. You're living in a seedy hotel. You get an idea. Someone says, I'll do this movie. I've got Pele. Try to get John Huston. You walk into this old world talent scout place.
The Conner Agency.
Talent agency. You're told that, John Huston lives on the Mexican coast. It's only accessible by plane and by boat. You get there in an open boat. He meets you. You're going to proposition him and say, Mr. Huston, I want you to act in my movie. I've got $25,000. You end up staying there for 3 weeks.
Right.
I mean, you could write an entire book about that. I want to put you back on track of I know why I took you off the rail, but the book begins with this extraordinary episode with John Huston, and maybe that's why the book moves me so much, because from there we go to a childhood in Georgia, Walton County, Monroe. You talk about your family, and we're going to talk about the deaths of your family. So I'm going to get myself steeled up for this. Okay. So let's go. Can you describe your grandmother Azalee?
Well, she was. I don't think my grandmother ever left the state of Georgia until she came to visit my mother up in Washington, D.C. She was a Georgian through and through. She was a very refined lady and very polite, and we would entertain company nearly every day, every afternoon. And when company showed up, my grandmother would stop whatever she was doing to serve them some fresh fruit, some vegetables, etc., and flowers. And that was the way of the country. I never saw my grandmother in anything other than a dress and pearls. She wore that every single day, and I think that was just something. That was a Southern tradition, I think, at the time, that my mother, took on as well. But she was, what I remember most about both of my grandparents on my mother's side, was strength and kindness, both of those, which are, I think, characteristics that are highly prized in the South.
It's dawning on me, Terrell, during this interview that this is a tough book to talk about. As I intimated before, when I read the book, it's like you're talking directly to me about your family. I'll get you started, okay? You had to me, a very nice childhood. Your brother Bob, your mother Doris, your father was in the Army intelligence, everything, grandparents in Georgia. You played, you could, and we're basically the same age. You could do anything you wanted in those days. Yeah. Parents would say, go out and play, come back for dinner, that kind of stuff. And
right.
And now I think you were 11 years old.
Right.
And you're in Naples, and your father and mother and brother and you are out for a ride. Your father has a heart attack and dies.
Right.
I don't know what to say. Can you talk about it? It's in the book.
Yeah.
But that's how it.
Well, it's the ultimate life change.
Okay.
When you first are exposed.
It's on the table.
Yeah. When you're first exposed to death like that, because when you're a child, you don't understand what death is. It just doesn't mean anything to you, and you can't accept the fact that one of your parents is gone. My dad, we had been to Pompeii and Herculaneum. It was a holiday, Washington's birthday, and we were on our way back home, and my dad said that he just had some pain in his chest and he couldn't drive the car anymore. Now, he had no history of any heart trouble at all. He was 39 years old. And he got in the back seat with me, and he suddenly went into convulsions and grabbed my arm and passed and clenched my wrist so tightly that I couldn't get his hand loose. And I didn't understand. I thought he was doing it intentionally to play with me at first. Then I realized something was wrong. My mother got in the back seat. She gave him CPR, but I could tell that she was fighting tears, but she was a nurse and she knew. But she held it back, and it was difficult because we had to try and flag a car down in a foreign country, not speaking the language, and people didn't understand why we were trying to flag them down until they saw my father in the back seat of the car. And so someone did call the Carabinieri eventually, and they came and took my mother to the hospital with my father, and Carabinieri drove my brother and me back to our apartment building in Naples. And I never knew what to expect for hours until I went upstairs with my brother when my mother called down, and the room was full of people. I had no idea why they were there. They were all dressed in jackets and ties. And when I asked, "Where's Dad?" And my mother said, "Well, come over here and I'll tell you." And the room cleared as soon as she said that, which was odd to me that everyone walked away. And she sat us on a couch and said, "Your father's had a heart attack and he died." And those words don't mean anything to a child. I mean, because he died, you can't believe that it's real. And I did burst into tears. My brother didn't. I did, and the next morning, I had no idea what happened the rest of that night. The next morning, I woke up in my parents' bed, and I thought it was all a bad dream. And when I came out, and I was so relieved that the dream was over. And when I came out into the hallway, we had a housekeeper who came every day, and she was at the other end of the hall. And she saw me, she turned and saw me and ran to me, grabbed me and burst into tears, and that's when I knew that it was real. But it was something that was impossible to accept. When I went to school that day, my mother told me I had to go to school and tell my teacher that I wasn't going to come back, that my father had died. And when I went to school, I was late, and my teacher insisted that I tell her why I was late in front of the class. And I asked, "Please, can you walk outside, step outside the class?" And she said, "No, you can tell the entire class." And I couldn't do it because I couldn't get the words out, because that made it real. When it's spoken, it becomes real. And I couldn't do it, so I burst into tears again. And then, of course, the teacher realized what was going on, and she felt terrible, and
She
took
came
me
to your
aside.
house, if I
She
recall.
came to my house.
This
after
was a
that.
teacher that you had mocked, and
I was probably not all that well behaved in class. I was a bit of a trickster, and several of us would make fun of this teacher, and we thought that she hated us all. And she came to my house one day, and she showed up dressed in her best clothes and in high heel shoes, which she never wore to school. And she had brought for me a St. Christopher's medal, the traveling saint that had been in her family. She'd been given it by her grandmother when she was 11 years old, my exact age, and she wanted me to have it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm so touched by it. And so I have to say that somehow in all my travels I misplaced it. I don't have it anymore, but I wish I did. But it taught me how you can't make assumptions about people. I mean, even at that age, that you tend to think that someone has a certain personality and a certain temperament, and even when you're 11 years old, you can't do it.
The book it jumps from one emotional, huge event to another. So let's just fast forward, and this is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not making this up. This is the way the book is. Now, you graduated from college. You have worked on the West Coast. Your films, documentaries. You've been a musician, play the drums. You're on a train. You're going to see. You're working on a project with Hal Ashby, the director of some of my favorite films, Being There, The Last Detail, incredible.
Harold and Maude.
And you're sitting on this. You're on a train, and you're talking to two teenage girls.
Yes, sisters.
What happened?
Well,
pardon me for asking, in that brusque way, but this is what the book did to me, Terrell.
Yeah, well, no,
Okay.
the book talks about these things, and that's what the book is for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why
Yeah.
it exists. I mean, the book was very cathartic to write, the book, and so talking about
It's
it
harder
is-
to talk
is
about it
good.
than I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's loss is something we all share.
Okay.
It's something we all share, and every family has a last member.
Yeah.
And I think every last member of every family should write a book like
Yeah.
mine. I think everyone should write a book because I think it's important to leave a footprint. And that experience on the train was.
You don't have to. We don't.
It's
have to
okay.
go-
I mean, I
okay.
can. But it's probably. I mean, it was an extremely traumatic experience for me because it's so sudden. I mean, my dad was probably the worst, and then my brother. But the train was I would say.
We haven't even gotten to your mother yet.
No, we haven't gotten her yet. But the train. What happened in the train? Because I'd formed this very quick friendship with these two young girls, two sisters, and they were having a conversation about a letter that the older sister was writing to a friend. And she had apparently said something to the friend that she felt bad about. And so she was writing a letter of apology. And she told her friend that she couldn't sleep at night. And her younger sister was telling her, don't tell her that, because that'll give her some power over you. And I was sitting with them, and I had to interject. I said, listen, never underestimate the value of a true friendship. I said, because you will have, they were very vibrant, intelligent, attractive young girls. And I said, you will have plenty of relationships, possibly a marriage or two. And, those will come and go, but a true friendship should last a lifetime. And, don't give that up. And they said, well, the younger sister, of course, was arguing with me about it. But they got up to get a snack in the snack bar, and I noticed they were walking the wrong way. They were walking forward, and the snack bar was behind us. And I called out to them to turn around, and they turned to me and asked what I had said, because they didn't hear me. And at that moment, the train, brakes came on in the train. And everyone went forward, including the girls. They left their feet. And then everyone started to get settled again, and the train resumed speed. And what had happened is the engineer, we were traveling about 125 miles an hour, and the engineer had seen that there was a freight train on the tracks coming toward us. And he tried to hit the brakes, and he realized he'd never stop in time, so he jumped off the train, and he was killed. And the train started to resume speed, and just within seconds we collided with the other train.
Incredible.
Yeah, and the car broke apart and went over. I was flying luggage and bodies, kind of buried everyone in the car. And I crawled out of the car, and another fellow about my size and age crawled out of the car. And we were about the only ones who crawled out of the car on our own power. And then we went back and tried to help other people in the car. So, which I, by the way, think is, and I don't talk about this in the book, but I think it's a natural instinct for human beings to try and help other people who they see need help. I really think that people just do it instinctively. But those girls, I was haunted by that for a long time, by the memory of what happened. Later on, I went in, while trying to rescue people from the wreckage, I saw the remains of a lot of people, including my friends.
It's presumptuous of me to ask you this, so please forgive me. I couldn't put the book down. And yet you told me before the interview that you hadn't even planned to publish it. These stories are so intimate, so moving, and so well written. It's what you do for a living. That's why I'm finding it so hard to. I do this for a living too. It's really hard to talk about what you write about because it's true. And what's presumptuous on my part is to ask you the next question. It seems to me that you are trying to leave a record, a footprint of your existence for people just to say, Terrell Tannen did something, experienced something, and wants to leave something.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's why I wrote it, yeah. I have no children of my own, and my brother had 3 children. And I felt that when my mother died, I read a lot of letters and different documents that talked about my family, and I made a lot of discoveries. And so I thought I also did an oral history from my mother before she died that I would leave behind for other family members, because that's something I would like to have, because I wanted to hear the voices of my family.
Wow. And
so I thought I would leave this book along with that, for people to know who I was and who my family was, who come my brother's great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, so they'd have it. And that's why, but then people started to read the book, and a lot of people responded the way you did.
Yeah,
You know, they were very moved by the book, and I think the personal nature of it got to them, and they started thinking about their own lives. That has been the most common response I've gotten from people, saying when they read my book, they think about their own lives, and they think about the lives of people they meet every day.
I feel like giving you a hug right now and saying, look, my mother died in 2005. Let me tell you about it.
Oh, yeah.
You did.
No,
it happened.
It's a common experience, and it's a unique experience, and it's a very special experience that is very hard to describe, except the only way you can describe it is by describing what happened. That's the only way you can do it. There are no other words that will bring it. I mean, Judson, my cousin, could probably do it, but
Sure.
I can only do it by describing what happened. And so I think that because I wanted this document to be left behind, people started to read it, and one person read it who writes historical fiction or historical nonfiction, and she asked if she could give it to her publisher to read, because her publisher was going through a similar experience, and so she did, and the publisher called me and asked if she could publish the book, because I really wasn't seeking publication other than that.
We haven't even talked about the death of your mother, who died in front of you. Your brother died in front of you, in your arms, basically. Your father died when you were 11 years old. But there's an incident in the book. I'll be very brief.
They all died in my arms, actually.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There was an incident in your youth. You're at your grandmother Azalie's place, and you and your brother, who's 3 years older than you at the time, find a loaded .38.
Right.
And he turns it on you and shoots and missed you by millimeters. And your family responded by not talking about that for years. And I'm going, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking to your brother, when you're adults, grown up, your brother looks at you and says, "You tried to shoot me."
Right.
That sends shivers up my spine. I don't know why.
Yeah.
How families can be like that.
Well,
all families are like that, though.
Yeah. It's just something he couldn't process. He couldn't, and the only way he could process it was by turning it around. Yeah. And I was with my mother was in the car with us, and my brother said that. She knew the truth, and I looked back at my brother. My mother looked at me and shook her head, like, "Don't say anything. Just let it go, let it go." But he did. He had heart surgery in 1999, and he had a complication, and they had to restart his heart, and there was a blood clot in it, and they were afraid if they restarted his heart, the blood clot might loosen and go to his brain and give him a stroke. So they told him to choose whether or not to restart it, and he said, you have to restart it, because his heart rate at the time was like 155 beats a second. And they said, well, you might not survive it. And so he said, okay. And so he wanted to say a few things to people before, and just in case he didn't make it. And one of the things he said to me was that, "I know that I pulled the trigger." So he knew.
I'm going to be personal with you right now, because as we get older, we experience the death, of course, of our parents. My father's 96 and refuses to die. I saw my mother die in my arms of cancer, long and protracted, much like your mother died. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to ask you, as a very intelligent, as a very well-read and well-written man, nothing prepares you for it as you get older. I mean, the death of people, friends, relatives, no one teaches you this in school, college. How do you feel about that?
I think it's just as well.
Just as well?
Yeah, I do.
You don't want to tell kids, someday mommy's going to die? No, you're right.
Because they won't. They won't know how to process it.
Yeah.
The experience is the only thing that can teach you. There's nothing will prepare you for it. I think that the only way to prepare someone for that type of experience is to try and teach them the best way to live their lives, to give them a strong sense of values that will be important to them, so that they don't mind. Frankly, the idea, you probably see this the same way. To me, it was a gift to spend the time I did with my mother when she passed.
I learned kindness is the most important thing a person can have. Be kind to one another.
But also it enables you to give something to somebody you care about that is beyond anything else you could possibly give. There's nothing you could buy. There's nothing you could arrange. Absolutely nothing. No clever idea that you can give to someone that equals the gift of being there throughout the end of their lives and sharing your time with them and letting them share when they start to hallucinate and they start to see things that are a part of their childhood and things that you can't imagine, and they get mean, and they start to mistreat you, and they start telling you things. My mother said things to me she'd never said in her whole life to me, and it was hard.
Right.
It was very, very hard. Now, nothing can prepare you for it, but certainly hospice workers who go through it all the time, they can help you through it. They can tell you that this is just what happens when the electrolytes, stop kicking in.
But the hardest thing for me was the do not resuscitate.
No, that's right. And my mother did that too. She just stopped eating.
Yeah.
And the doctors who were friends convinced me that that was the most humane way to go, and the least painful. So, and it's a hard thing to go along with, but it's just like when you, I hate to make this analogy, but when you have to put a dog down,
Sure.
it's a hard thing to do.
Sure.
It's a hard thing to do, and to let one of your parents go like that.
This book packs a punch. When Blood Is Gone, a memoir of time, place, and family. I'm going to ask you a very easy question, conclude the interview, because I want people to go out and buy this book. How can such a nice guy such as yourself exist in Hollywood all these years?
Actually, there are a lot of nice people in Hollywood.
Really?
There really are. Yeah. There are. It's Hollywood is tough. It's a tough business. But if you believe in what you do and you enjoy doing it, which I do, you just keep struggling away at it, and you have some successes and you have some failures. But I've had a wonderful time there, and I've had a lot of fun, and I've met some fascinating people. And lifelong friends.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want you to please write some more. The book is incredible. Your family is incredible. It's one of the most powerful little books I've ever read in my life. It's called When Blood Is Gone, a memoir of time, place, and family by Terrell Tannen. Thank you for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Comments and opinions expressed on Writers in Focus are those of the individual participants and are presented for the purpose of discussion only. No endorsements by Atlanta Fulton Public Library System or Fulton County government are intended, and none should be presumed.